Today on NewsWatch, moving in on Syria, we'll show you why the Russian military is working to establish a presence in the war-torn country. Plus,
he saw that this was very effective and chaplains were needed in the trenches in the Army. He said, why not corporate America?
can this new idea for workplace chaplains help prevent violence on the job? And it's a huge health craze. Find out what the paleo diet is, why it works so well, and how it can even heal diseases. Thanks for joining us for CBN NewsWatch. I'm Ephraim Graham. Since World War II, a major U.S. strategic objective has been to keep the Russian military out of the region. But it looks like the Russians are now moving into the neighborhood. Dale Hurd has this story.
With an old ally, Bashar al-Assad, on the ropes in the fight against ISIS and other rebel groups, the Russians are building a strong military presence near the Syrian naval port of Latakia, an airbase protected by tanks and heavy armor.
We, like you, are watching this with concern. We don't truly understand yet what it is that Russia is going to do in Syria.
We continue to monitor this closely. There is a degree of uncertainty about their intentions that continue to concern us.
But in point of fact, U.S. officials have a very good idea about what Russia is up to in Syria. They're building a forward operating base that will host Russian combat aircraft and housing for as many as 1,500 Russian military personnel, advisors, instructors, logistics personnel, and pilots, along with sophisticated weapons systems. Syria's ambassador to Russia on Monday called talk of a Russian troop presence in Syria a lie. But Pentagon officials have told the press that Russia has already sent artillery and 7 T-90 tanks to the Syrian airfield near Latakia. Critics call this yet another major strategic blunder by the Obama administration. U.S. presidents dating back to Harry Truman have used threats to keep the Russian army from gaining influence in the Middle East. But that may be precisely what is happening now. Perhaps because the Kremlin views Barack Obama, in the words of a Wall Street Journal editorial, as a pushover. Dale Hurd, CBN News.
North Korea says it has revamped and restarted all of its atomic bomb fuel production plants. This comes just one day after Pyongyang warned it is ready to launch satellites aboard long-range rockets. Outside analysts say the back-to-back threats are designed to spur talks with the United States and eventually provide concessions for the impoverished nation. But this will only push Pyongyang closer to a standoff with Washington and its allies. Senate Republicans are trying again to block the president's nuclear deal with Iran. They're moving ahead with a resolution rejecting the agreement. Senate Democrats are expected to defeat the measure just like they did last week with a similar one. The agreement restricts Iran's nuclear program, but does not prevent the regime from working towards a nuclear bomb. Opponents say the deal is dangerous for the U.S. and for Israel. The humanitarian crisis in Europe is sparking debate here in the U.S. over how many refugees the U.S. should accept. The president says he will raise the cap to 75,000 next year. That's up from 70,000 this year. That includes 10,000 Syrian refugees. But human rights groups say that number is unacceptable given the scope of the crisis and commitments from other countries like Germany, which plans to take in 800,000. World Relief, a humanitarian nonprofit, is calling on the U.S. to accept 200,000 refugees, including 100,000 from Syria.
Going back to World War II, this is the worst humanitarian crisis with refugees worldwide. 50 million refugees, displaced people, asylum seekers. So it's a time for us as a nation to do what we've done before, even under the Reagan administration when we accepted far more than 200,000.
Bauman is also calling on every U.S. church to welcome a refugee family. Some key Republicans in Congress, however, say the U.S. would not be able to vet so many refugees and worry radicalized Muslims could slip in. A ministry to the deaf is taking on militant Islamists. In March, ISIS released a video aimed at recruiting deaf and mute Muslims. It featured 2 ISIS fighters using sign language to convince the deaf they can serve with ISIS. Now the Deaf Bible Society is responding with a video of its own, for the first time translating the gospel message into a Middle Eastern sign language. Deaf Bible Society President J.R. Bucklew says ISIS is attempting to prey on a vulnerable and isolated community. He wants them to learn the transforming power of the gospel instead. Rowan County, Kentucky clerk is issuing same-sex marriage licenses without Clerk Kim Davis's name on them. A lesbian couple received their license yesterday. Instead of Davis's name, the license reads pursuant to a federal court order. Davis spent 5 days in jail for refusing to issue gay marriage licenses under her name. Her attorney says this is an acceptable solution.
The license that went out today does not violate Kim Davis's conscience. If it's satisfactory to the plaintiffs and the court, then I think we will have found that win-win solution that we had been asking for all along.
Kentucky Governor Steve Beshear agrees the new licenses are legal, but he is resisting calls for a special legislative session to exempt Davis and others who have a religious objection to issuing same-sex marriage licenses. Democratic White House hopeful Bernie Sanders is ahead of Hillary Clinton in both New Hampshire and Iowa, and he continues making gains in national polls. But Sanders is not only courting Hillary's usual supporters. In an unlikely appearance, Sanders spoke at Liberty University Monday, a school that usually draws GOP candidates. He addressed the issue of income inequality, referring to it as massive injustice that should unite people throughout the political spectrum.
We live, and I hope all of you know this, in the wealthiest country in the history of the world. But most Americans don't know that, because almost all of that wealth and income is going to the top 1%.
According to a tally by the Wall Street Journal, Sanders' proposals would cost the nation $18 trillion in new spending over a decade. Coming up, the company that is trying to stamp out workplace violence around America. See how chaplains in the marketplace are meeting employee needs. The hunt for the man who murdered a Mississippi college professor ended in the suspected gunman's suicide Monday night. 45-year-old Shannon Lamb jumped from his car and ran off to escape the police who were following him. Minutes afterwards, officers heard a gunshot and later found his body with a bullet wound to the head. Lamb is believed to have killed Delta State University professor Ethan Schmidt in his office, prompting a campus-wide lockdown. At Lamb's apartment, police discovered the body of Amy Prentice, a woman who lived with him. Police have yet to discover a motive for those killings. We see the horrible images of workplace violence all too often. Just recently, a news crew was gunned down on live television by a former colleague. No one really knows what personal issues people might bring to their jobs. But as Caitlin Burke reports, one organization is hoping to prevent future problems with a novel solution by providing chaplains in the workplace.
From shootings in schools to theaters to the workplace, violence has become so commonplace that U.S. Attorney General Loretta Lynch recently declared, "It's a sad fact now that no one is safe." On the job, personnel problems abound, and there's often no one to help or even notice potentially dangerous signals. A Texas-based group wants to change that by providing employers a unique solution.
By having chaplains in the workplace, they know that there's somebody that they can talk to confidentially, privately, and that can help them. Sometimes just talking about an issue really diffuses it for them and helps them to get perspective.
Marketplace chaplains serve across the U.S. and even internationally, providing companies and their employees with non-denominational, confidential pastoral care.
I think there's a place as an HR manager where you have to stop from a corporate perspective and you care so much about the employees, but the chaplains will step in and take over at that point where we as an employer leave off. We've had chaplains conduct funerals and do hospital visits and be all the places that we can't be on a day when an employee really needs help.
It is a tremendous blessing. It provides a sense of, peace nearly as you come to work and you know that they have that avenue if there is that need.
Started in 1984 by Gil Strickland, Marketplace Chaplains is one of the largest workplace chaplain organizations in the world, outside of the U.S. military.
Gil Strickland came out of the Army. He was a chaplain in the Army, and he saw that this was very effective, and chaplains were needed in the trenches in the Army. He said, why not corporate America?
Chaplains can be found in all 50 states and 5 different countries.
If Nancy calls and says, my mother's sick, and Nancy's in Oregon, but her mom's in Fort Worth, we're able to respond and see her mom and then get back to her immediately and say, we saw your mom, she's doing well. So we have the ability to respond to this increasing distance between families and really bring them back together.
Participation in the chaplains program is voluntary, and since they're often in secular workplaces, not everyone is interested in their services. But for a majority of the employees that they work with, when life gets hard, it's the chaplains that they turn to.
My brother is sick for like 3 months. He's in the hospital, and he come in every day. He pray for him. He know my family, so I'm sorry.
I felt kind of, let's say, I didn't believe it at the beginning, but I saw how they interacted with my fellow coworkers, and I really liked that connection they had.
Christian values and Christ and the church are not as prominent in individuals' lives, and so just the fact that these companies invite us in gives us an opportunity, to just share Christ.
Success for Marketplace Chaplains isn't about the number they serve, but the quality of care provided to employers and employees.
We are not trying to push anything. We are just there to serve the people, the employees and their families. We're not trying to make anything happen spiritually, but it often does because they bring it up.
Chaplains who walk the halls of companies across the country bring more than just qualifications to the job.
I feel a passion to come to these places, these workplaces, different companies, different venues, different areas, it's different sizes, and meet people, and people are the same. People have the same problems, basically. And so just trusting God to use something I say, trusting God to touch them through the love that I want to share with them and the care that I want to extend to them. And just know that it's Jesus in me that's making the difference.
People may not show up to church on Sunday, but they will most likely be at work on Monday. And in a growing number of companies, a chaplain will be there, ready to walk through life with them and maybe share something about eternity. Caitlin Burke, CBN News, Plano, Texas.
Up next, a healthy eating plan that's so easy a caveman could do it. Get the secret behind the paleo diet. Fish has had a long reputation as brain food, but it could be good for your emotional health as well. Eating more fish could help lower the risk of depression. That is according to research from China. Scientists reviewed the findings from 26 separate studies covering more than 150,000 people. And they found people who ate more fish cut their risk of depression by up to 17%. A possible reason? The omega-3 fatty acids in fish can stimulate dopamine and serotonin in the brain, both of which can help you feel better. Well, you can't feel it and you won't even know it's there, but inflammation is a serious health problem. It could be behind heart disease, arthritis, cancer, and dozens of other diseases. But you can fight it. And as Lori Johnson shows us, you might lose some weight while you're doing it.
Mark Sisson is the picture of health. At the age of 60, yes, 60, he has the body of a man half his age, inside and out. No disease, no medications. But he hasn't always been this way. His anti-inflammatory diet changed everything.
Most of what ails people today could be, if not cured, substantially mitigated with a few lifestyle corrections, first and foremost being diet.
Mark follows the paleo diet.
If you've heard of the paleo diet but aren't really sure what it is, you're not alone. It was the #1 search diet on Google last year.
For the last 25 years, Mark has analyzed nutrition research. 2.5 million readers follow Mark's work.
We've got hundreds of thousands of user experiences on my site, on Mark's Daily Apple, of people who've embraced this program, who've said, so not only did I lose the weight, but my blood work improved, and my energy levels improved.
The paleo diet involves avoiding sugar, wheat, trans or omega-6 fats, and some dairy.
When you get rid of all those bad guys, you decrease inflammation and you improve your body's ability to burn fat.
Sugar weakens your immune system and causes insulin problems. Wheat treats your body much the same way. Mark didn't even realize wheat caused him problems until he stopped eating it.
My IBS went away. My arthritis went away. The lingering sinus issues that I had went away. The heartburn that I used to have infrequently, but enough to be to have me carrying Pepsid AC in my wallet, that went away.
Highly inflammatory trans fats and omega-6 fats are found in many packaged foods and oils that line the grocery store shelves.
And we eliminate these industrial oils, what we call the vegetable oils that we thought 2 decades ago were so healthy for us. Turns out they're very unhealthy for us.
Many dairy products cause inflammation, allergies, and stomach problems.
So if you give up sugar, gluten, trans fats, omega-6 fats, and dairy, you may be wondering what's left to eat.
Turns out a lot.
Certainly use plants, vegetables as the main basis of the paleo eating strategy, and then great sources of protein, so meat and fish, fowl, eggs, and so on, and then healthy fats.
Healthy fats include avocados, nuts, olive oil, fish oil, and don't forget coconut oil, even though it's a saturated fat. In fact, some health experts don't believe saturated fats like beef, pork, and eggs should still be viewed as bad guys when it comes to our diet.
Some doctors still have a real issue with saturated fat because they're relying on 20-year-old studies that were faulty to begin with, and they haven't done the research, and they haven't stayed current with dietary research. But there are thousands of doctors now who have completely shifted and are embracing this concept.
That includes Duke University's Dr. Eric Westman, who used to think saturated fat caused heart disease. Then he changed his mind.
Saturated fat, the fat that we've been taught not to eat, raises your good cholesterol best of all the food you can eat.
Of course, any diet is best combined with exercise. Looking at Mark, you might think he lives at the gym, but the truth is he barely breaks a sweat. He recommends slow movement like walking and a lot of it, outside or even at a treadmill desk. Twice a week, he recommends muscle building. Using his own weight as resistance, Mark does push-ups, squats, lunges, and sit-ups.
The tension of the muscle on the bone, it creates bone density, for instance. And we want to have strong bones as we get older.
Then once a week, a set of sprints, giving all you've got for 30-second surges of aerobic activity, like running, biking, or swimming.
That little burst of activity can have such dramatic effects on all aspects of your health. And for people who have been trying to lose weight, for instance, and are plateaued or stalled, that sprint workout can be sort of the breakthrough.
Finally, get enough sleep, because without it, your immune system suffers and you increase hormones that make you hungry.
A lot of people will get the diet right, for instance. They'll start to dial in the diet, but because they enjoy, they're too tempted by the nighttime activities and they don't get enough sleep, they wonder why they're not losing that last 15 or 20 pounds. It may be because you're not getting enough sleep.
So an anti-inflammatory diet is missing sugar, wheat, processed oils, and most dairy. So you eat foods that keep you thin and healthy well into your golden years. Lori Johnson, CBN News.
Amazing for 60. Good advice. Stay with us. We're coming right back with more of CBN NewsWatch. Two Christian films finished in the top 10 at the box office this weekend. War Room came in at number 3 with just under $8 million. The movie was number 1 last weekend. So far, War Room has made nearly $40 million on a budget of just $3 million. Well, the film deals with a family who perseveres through difficult times with the help of an older, wiser woman and through prayer. And the movie, 90 Minutes in Heaven, opened at number 10, bringing in $2 million in limited release. It is based on the true story of Pastor John Piper, who died in a traffic accident before coming back to life. Well, it is now time for your Tuesday Tweetable, and we hope you will take the time to post, tag, tweet, and share this message. When you grow tired in the race of life, don't quit, rest in the peace of God, and rise again to finish the race. After all, the race is not given to the swift or to the strong, but to those who endure. And at times, in that endurance, you simply have the strength to rest in His peace, and that is not a bad place to be. Well, that is going to do it for this edition of CBN NewsWatch. Remember, you can find more of our exclusive coverage of the issues you care most about at cbnnews.com. Please take the time to tell us what you think about the stories you've seen here today. You can do it on Facebook or at CBN News on Twitter. Hope you'll join us again right here next time. Make this a terrific Tuesday, everybody. We'll see you tomorrow.